Hello again. Here I am in my Machiavellianism dataset, and I'm going to show you how to reverse score in SPSS. So I'm going to demonstrate reverse scoring a single item, reverse scoring multiple items, and then I'll also talk about the syntax and different ways that you can do this. So as a data analyst, you'll find that there's a lot of different ways to do the same things, and you're going to have your own preference, but this should show you some different options. So as a quick refresher, I am using the Machiavellianism dataset that I pulled from Kaggle. It was collected in 2017 to 2019, and it's using the Mach 4 questionnaire, which was developed by Christine Geis. So if you need a refresher on what reverse scoring is, if you're not totally understanding that before you get into this, you can always go back and refresh with that conceptual video that I have. So here I have 20 questions that are all part of the Mach 4. So here you can see MQ1 through MQ20. And in the label, you can see that some of them have an R in front of it. And this is just showing which of the questions need to be reverse scored. So if we look at question 4, you can see, I'll make this bigger. Most people are basically good and kind. That is not what somebody high in Machiavellianism would say. So that needs to be flipped, because right now, if they agree with it, they're going to get a high score. So if they agree with that statement, they're going to get a high score. Agree is a 5. And we need it to be low, because a high score should mean high in Machiavellianism. So this is asked in the opposite direction. So I need to do that for all of these variables that have an R label. And I need to swap it so that a 1 becomes a 5. So the quickest way to do this using the menu is to go to transform, and you're going to recode into different variables. And the reason why you're going to do different instead of same is that you really shouldn't transform your existing variables because then you don't have anything to check against to make sure that your transformations worked. So it's best practice to recode into a different variable. So here you can see I'm in my recode into different variables window, and you'll notice that the labels are showing here. So the variable label is showing. So if I right click, I could change it to variable name, but then I can't see which need to be reverse scored. And that's fine. I could refer to my notes and say, oh, it's 3 and 4 that need to be reverse scored, but I'm going to leave it on variable labels because that's efficient laziness, right? You guys know that I love that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to transform 1 first, and then I'll show you how you can do multiple. And then again, I'll get into the syntax. So I'm going to take my 3, which is this R, this first R. I'm going to go over here. It turns into the name, which is the MQ3. So this question, I need to take my MQ3, and I need to use those scores to create my new variable that I'm going to call MQ3R for reverse scored, because I'm super creative that way. So we have MQ3R, and we're going to do MQ. I'm going to say this is reverse. Actually, I'll do MQ3 reverse scored. So that way I know that this is the reverse scored option. It has an R there. And I need to click change here, and then it'll pop up. So you can see that we're going to take MQ3, we're going to do some transformations, and then we're going to use that to create this MQ3R. Now I need to go to old and new values. So my old value is the value that's in MQ3 here that I need to change. So I'm going to start by doing 1. And I'm going to say, okay, MQ3 1. I'm going to go ahead and make you a 5 because that is the reverse. So my new value in my new variable, MQ3R, is going to be a 5. And then I'm going to click add. And then I'm going to do a 2. So in my old variable, 2 is going to become a 4. I'm going to add that. 3 is going to stay a 3, but I still need to make that change because otherwise it's going to ignore the 3s in the MQ3. And then my MQ3R is going to have missing values instead of having a 3 there. So I need to include that. Then 4 is going to become a 2. 5 is going to become a 1. Now, you could say that system missing will become system missing, but it's going to do that automatically. So system missing values are going to stay system missing. Same with user missing values. So I am going to say continue. And now if I go to OK, what I should see, oh, and look at that, there's my syntax. I'll come back to that. What I should see is that when I click into my data view, and I'm going to actually move my variable so that it's right up there. So here's at the end, here's my MQ3R with my label that I created. I'm going to bring it back up to the top. So I'm going to put it right there just so we can look at them together. And quick shortcut, you can double click here. It's going to bring you right to those variables. So you can see that my 4 became a 2, my 3 is a 3, my 5 became a 1. So you always want to just look at your data, because it's so important that you do this correctly, that you're accurate. So you always want to look through and actually visualize your data and just make sure that it looks correct, because maybe you didn't put in the correct question. Maybe you did MQ4 and made MQ3R, and that would just be a disaster, obviously. So you need to be really careful about this process. So there are other ways that you can do this. So first, let me show you how to do all of them together. So let's say transform. I'm going to do this same recode into different variables. And I can do all of them. So I could say that I'm going to have MQ4. I'm going to make that MQ4R. I'm not going to bother with labels for this. And then I could move this one, and I'll make that MQ6R. And let's do 7 and make that MQ7R. And I'm just going to go through and do the rest of these. MQ9R. And this one's going to become MQ10R. And again, I have to do this change between each of them. And you just want to make sure that you're doing this carefully enough that you are paying attention and that they match, right? You want 10 to be 10R, 11 to be 11R. And we want MQ14 to be MQ14R. And 16. Ooh. Change. 17. Change, and our last one is 19. Q19. So I always just go back into my old new values and I say, okay, yeah, that's correct. I still want to do that for all of them. I'm going to say, okay. And now if we look at our variables, we can see there they are. All of our new reverse coded variables. So with this, there are other ways to do this. Another way you can do this is you can go to transform and you can compute a variable. So I could take my, make my target variable, that's my new variable. I could say MQ3R. And I'm going to say alt at the end of this one. So this will be my alternative. Remember, there's no spaces and names for SPSS. So I could make this I'll just make a different one. So I could say that instead, what I want to do is I want to take my highest possible option, which is 5, and add 1 to it, because that's part of the calculation. You can always go back to that concept video. And then I can just say minus and my MQ3. And then I can say, okay. And it's going to do the same thing. So if we look at the MQ3R and my new MQ3R alt, there we go. And double click. You can see that these match, right? These are the same calculations. So that's the other way that you can do it. So let me go ahead and show you the syntax. If you don't care about syntax, you can stop the video. But the reason that syntax is useful is that if you are cleaning your data, you can go back and make changes to your syntax, to your commands. me see if I can make this bigger. All right, so this is a very quick way for you to make these changes, make these modifications. So I'm going to copy this. So I just right-clicked and copied, and I'm going to create a new syntax. So let's say that you want to be able to run this analysis again, or run this cleaning process again. The way this works, so this is the first one that I did. So you can see that I recoded MQ3, and I said recodes. This is my command here, is that I'm recoding MQ3, and I'm making 1 in my old variable equal to 5 in my new, 2 to 4, 3 to 3, etc., into my new variable, which is MQ3R. The into MQ3R is very important because that's going to create your new variable. If you leave this part off, you're going to recode in the same variable, which you usually want to avoid. There's exceptions, but you typically want to avoid that. You can see that I also added a variable label. MQ3R is going to have the variable label MQ3R reverse scored. And then that was executed. So that's the syntax for that first command that I did. Notice that you can do this all together. So this is where I did the second time, where I did all of it together. And so I listed all of the items that needed to be reverse scored with the space between them. And then I listed the same information, what the old and new values were. And then after into, in the same order, super important, in the same order, I have the list of the MQ3Rs that go with each of these. So again, needs to be in the same order. And so that is that second option. This other one, I computed MQ3R alt, which is the 6 minus the MQ3. So you can see that there's a lot of different ways to complete this reverse scoring. But hopefully this will give you the skills that you need to do your reverse scoring.